Some people say that the worst moments in life come without warning. I used to think that was just something people said to make themselves feel better about the bad things that happened to them. But now, I know it is true. My name is Glenda, and I want to tell you about the day my sister-in-law got married. It was supposed to be a beautiful celebration of love. Instead, it became the day I almost lost everything, including my life and the life of my unborn child. Before we begin, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below, and if this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now let me take you back to that morning when everything still seemed fine and I had no idea what was about to happen behind that bathroom door. To understand what happened that day, I need to tell you about my husband's family. Marcus and I met 5 years ago at a coffee shop in downtown Chicago. He was reading a book and I accidentally spilled my latte on his table. We laughed about it, exchanged numbers, and the rest is history. We got married 3 years ago in a small ceremony with close friends and family. It was perfect, or at least I thought our life together would be perfect. Marcus is the oldest child in his family. He has a younger sister named Diane, who is 7 years younger than him. Their mother, Patricia, is a woman who believes that appearance is everything. She grew up in a wealthy family in Connecticut and married Ronald, a successful businessman, when she was 22 years old. Patricia has always been obsessed with status, reputation, and making sure her family looks perfect to the outside world. From the very first day I met Patricia, I could tell she did not approve of me. I grew up in a middle-class family in Ohio. My father was a high school teacher, and my mother worked as a nurse. We did not have much money, but we had love. Patricia, however, saw my background as a problem. She never said it directly, but I could see it in the way she looked at me. The way she would make little comments about my clothes, my hair, or the way I spoke. Diane was always Patricia's favorite. As the youngest and only daughter, she could do no wrong in her mother's eyes. Patricia spoiled her with expensive gifts, paid for her college education at a private university, and threw her lavish birthday parties every year. Diane grew up expecting to be the center of attention, and Patricia made sure she always was. When Marcus told his family that we were engaged, Patricia's reaction was cold. She smiled politely and said congratulations, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She had always hoped Marcus would marry someone from a wealthy family, someone who would elevate their social status even further. Instead, he chose me, a girl from Ohio, with student loans and a second-hand car. Our wedding was small because that was what Marcus and I wanted. Patricia complained about it for months afterward, saying we had embarrassed the family by not having a proper celebration. I tried to brush off her comments, but they stung. I wanted so badly to be accepted by my husband's family, to feel like I belonged. But no matter how hard I tried, Patricia always kept me at arm's length. 3 years into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. Marcus was overjoyed. He had always wanted to be a father, and I could see the excitement in his eyes every time he talked about our future child. We decided to wait until I was past the first trimester to tell his family, just to be safe. When we finally shared the news at a family dinner, Marcus's father, Ronald, hugged us both and told us how happy he was. Patricia smiled and said she was looking forward to being a grandmother, but there was something in her voice that felt hollow, like she was saying the words she knew she was supposed to say rather than what she actually felt. As my pregnancy progressed, Diane's wedding plans took center stage. She had gotten engaged to Derek, a man she met at a charity gala, and Patricia immediately began planning what she called the wedding of the century. Every family gathering became about Diane's wedding. The venue, the flowers, the guest list, the dress. Patricia talked about nothing else. My pregnancy was barely mentioned, almost as if it was an inconvenience that took attention away from the main event. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in late October. By then, I would be 8 months pregnant. My doctor had advised me to take it easy and avoid stress, but Patricia had other plans. She assigned me to be one of Diane's attendants, which meant I was expected to help with everything from the bridal shower to the rehearsal dinner to the wedding day itself. I wanted to say no, but Marcus asked me to try to keep the peace. He knew how important this was to his mother, and he hoped that if I helped make Diane's wedding perfect, Patricia might finally accept me as part of the family. The morning of the wedding, I woke up feeling strange. There was a dull ache in my lower back that I had not felt before. I told myself it was just because I had been on my feet so much the day before, helping with last-minute preparations. I took a warm shower, got dressed in the navy blue dress Patricia had chosen for the attendants, and drove to the resort where the wedding was being held. The resort was beautiful. It sat on a hill overlooking a lake with manicured gardens and a grand ballroom that could hold 300 guests. Patricia had spent 18 months planning every detail, and it showed. White roses were everywhere. The chairs were draped in silk, and a string quartet was already playing softly in the corner. It looked like something out of a magazine. I found Diane in the bridal suite on the 3rd floor. She was surrounded by her bridesmaids, all of them drinking champagne and laughing. When I walked in, Diane barely acknowledged me. She glanced at my belly and then looked away as if my pregnancy was something unpleasant she did not want to think about. Patricia was there too, directing everyone like a general commanding her troops. She saw me and immediately started giving me tasks. Go check on the flowers. Make sure the photographer has arrived. Confirm the seating chart with the event coordinator. I did everything she asked without complaint. My back was still aching, and I noticed I was having occasional cramps, but I pushed through. I told myself it was just Braxton Hicks contractions, the false labor pains that are common in the 3rd trimester. I had read about them in my pregnancy books. They were uncomfortable but harmless. At least that was what I believed. As the morning went on, the cramps became more frequent. I tried to ignore them, but by 11 o'clock, I was having trouble concentrating. The pain was sharper now, coming in waves that made me catch my breath. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, hoping a few minutes alone would help me feel better. That was when I noticed the fluid. My water had broken. I stood in that bathroom staring at the wet floor, and my heart started racing. This was not supposed to happen. I still had 4 weeks until my due date. My baby was not ready. I was not ready. I needed to call Marcus. I needed to get to a hospital. I needed help. I rushed out of the bathroom and found Patricia in the hallway, barking orders at a florist who had apparently arranged the centerpieces incorrectly. I grabbed her arm, probably harder than I should have, and told her what was happening. I said that my water had broken, that I was going into labor, that I needed to call my husband and get to a hospital right away. Patricia's face went through several expressions in the span of a few seconds. First shock, then confusion, then something that looked almost like anger. She glanced around to make sure no one else had heard me, then pulled me into a small alcove near the service elevator. She told me to calm down. She said I was probably overreacting, that first time mothers often mistake normal discomfort for labor. She said the wedding was starting in an hour, and she could not deal with this right now. She told me to go back to the bathroom, clean myself up, and wait until after the ceremony. Then we could figure out what to do. I could not believe what I was hearing. I told her that I was not overreacting, that this was real, that my baby was coming, whether she liked it or not. I reached for my phone to call Marcus, but before I could dial, Patricia snatched it out of my hand. I asked her what she was doing. I demanded she give me back my phone, but Patricia just shook her head. She said she was not going to let me ruin Diane's special day. She said I had probably planned this on purpose, that I had always been jealous of Diane and wanted to steal her spotlight. She said I was selfish and thoughtless, and she was not going to let me destroy everything she had worked so hard to create. Before I could respond, Patricia grabbed my arm and started pulling me down the hallway. I was in too much pain to resist effectively. She opened a door that led to a small bathroom, the kind that is meant for staff rather than guests. It was tiny, with just a toilet, a sink, and a single flickering light bulb overhead. She pushed me inside and told me to stay there until the ceremony was over. She said it would only be a few hours. She said women had been giving birth for thousands of years, and I could hold on for a little while longer. She said if I made a scene, I would never be welcome in her family again. Then she closed the door. I heard the lock click from the outside. I banged on that door until my hands were bruised. I screamed for help until my voice was hoarse. But the bathroom was in a back hallway, far from the main event spaces. The music from the string quartet drowned out my cries. No one came. The contractions were coming faster now, maybe 5 minutes apart. Each one felt like a knife twisting in my abdomen. I slid down to the cold tile floor because I could no longer stand. I prayed. I talked to my baby. I told her that Mommy was going to get us out of this, that we were going to be okay. I promised her that I would protect her, no matter what. Time lost all meaning. The pain became everything. At some point, I must have passed out because the next thing I remember is waking up in a bright room that smelled like antiseptic. There were beeping machines around me and tubes in my arm. A woman in scrubs was adjusting something on a monitor. I tried to speak, but my throat was so dry that only a croak came out. The woman turned and saw that I was awake. She smiled gently and told me that I was at Lakewood Memorial Hospital. She said my name was Sandra and that she was going to take good care of me. I asked about my baby. The words came out broken and desperate. Sandra's face softened and she squeezed my hand. She told me that my daughter was in the neonatal intensive care unit. She was small because she had arrived early, but she was a fighter. The doctors were optimistic. I started crying, then tears of relief and exhaustion and fear all mixed together. Sandra handed me a tissue and told me that my husband was in the waiting room. She asked if I wanted her to bring him in. I nodded, unable to speak. When Marcus walked through that door, I could see that he had been crying too. His eyes were red and puffy, and there was a haunted look on his face that I had never seen before. He rushed to my bedside and took my hand in both of his, pressing his lips to my knuckles. He asked me what happened. He said he had been at the ceremony when he got a call from the hospital, not from his family. He said when he asked his mother where I was, she told him I had left early because I was not feeling well. He said he did not understand how I ended up here in surgery, nearly dying on an operating table. I told him everything. I told him about the contractions, about his mother taking my phone, about being locked in that bathroom. I watched his face change as I spoke, watched the confusion turn to disbelief, and then to a cold, burning anger that I had never seen in him before. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then he stood up, kissed my forehead, and told me he would be right back. I found out later what happened while I was unconscious. A member of the resort staff, a young man named Carlos, who worked in housekeeping, had been walking through the back hallway to get supplies. He heard faint sounds coming from the staff bathroom and thought an animal might have gotten trapped inside. When he tried the door and found it locked from the outside, he became concerned. He used his master key to open it and found me on the floor, barely conscious, lying in a pool of fluid and blood. Carlos called for help immediately. The resort had a small medical office for emergencies, and the nurse on duty recognized that I was in advanced labor with complications. She called an ambulance while Carlos stayed with me, holding my hand and telling me that help was coming. I do not remember any of this, but Marcus told me later that Carlos probably saved my life and the life of our daughter. The ambulance arrived within 12 minutes. By then, the wedding ceremony had just ended, and guests were making their way to the cocktail hour. Patricia saw the ambulance from the window of the ballroom, but apparently assumed it was for someone else. It never occurred to her that I might actually be in danger. Or maybe it did, and she simply did not care. I was rushed into emergency surgery. The doctors performed a cesarean section because my daughter was in distress, and there was no time for a natural delivery. She was born weighing just 4 pounds and 3 ounces, tiny and fragile, but alive. They whisked her away to the NICU while the surgeons worked to stop my bleeding. Marcus arrived at the hospital about an hour after I came out of surgery. He had been in the middle of the wedding reception when he got the call. The hospital had contacted him as my emergency contact because they found his number in the wallet I had been carrying. When he answered the phone and heard that his wife was in surgery, after being found unconscious in a locked bathroom, he did not even wait to hear the rest. He ran out of the reception hall without a word to anyone. When he got to the hospital, the doctors told him that both his wife and daughter were stable, but that it had been a close call. If the housekeeper had not found me when he did, if the ambulance had been delayed by even a few more minutes, the outcome could have been very different. Marcus called his mother from the hospital waiting room. I can only imagine what that conversation was like. Patricia apparently tried to play innocent at first, saying she had no idea what had happened, that I must have wandered off somewhere. But Marcus was not fooled. He told her that the bathroom door was locked from the outside, that the only people with keys were the resort staff and family members who had been given access to the back hallways. He told her that someone at the hospital had already called the police to report a possible case of unlawful imprisonment and reckless endangerment. Patricia showed up at the hospital the next morning. I was awake by then, still weak, but alert enough to understand what was happening around me. She came into my room with Ronald, her face arranged into an expression of concern that did not reach her eyes. She said she was so sorry for what happened. She said she never meant for things to go this far. She said she had panicked because the wedding was so important, and she had not been thinking clearly. She said she just wanted me to wait a little while, just until the ceremony was over. She never imagined I was really in labor. I listened to her excuses without responding. I watched her twist her hands together, watched her eyes dart around the room as if looking for an escape route. She asked me, her voice trembling, if I was going to press charges. She said it would destroy the family. She said Diane's marriage would be tainted by scandal before it even began. She said she would do anything, give me anything, if I would just let this go. I still did not speak. I looked past her to the doorway, where Marcus had just appeared. He stood there for a moment, taking in the scene, his mother begging, his father standing helplessly to the side, his wife lying in a hospital bed, recovering from surgery that should never have been necessary. Then Marcus walked into the room and stood beside my bed. He looked at his mother, and when he spoke, his voice was calm but cold. He said that Patricia was no longer welcome in our lives. He said that what she did was unforgivable, that she had nearly killed his wife and his child because she cared more about appearances than about human life. He said he had already spoken to a lawyer about pursuing criminal charges, and that whether or not the district attorney decided to prosecute, he would be filing a civil suit. Patricia's face went pale. She reached out toward Marcus, calling him by the nickname she had used when he was a child. But Marcus stepped back out of her reach. He was not finished. He told her that he had spoken to Diane that morning. He said he had explained everything that happened, hoping his sister would be horrified by their mother's actions. Instead, Diane had defended Patricia. She said that I had always been dramatic, that I probably exaggerated the whole thing, that I had ruined her wedding by making everything about myself. Marcus said that was the moment he realized the truth about his family. He said he had spent his whole life trying to earn his mother's approval, trying to keep the peace, trying to pretend that the dysfunction was normal. But no more. He was done. He told Patricia that he was cutting off all contact with her and with Diane. He said his wife and daughter were his family, now his only family. He said if Patricia or Diane tried to contact us, he would consider it harassment and respond accordingly. Ronald tried to intervene then. He said that Marcus was being too harsh, that families go through difficult times, but they work things out. Marcus looked at his father with something like pity. He said that Ronald had spent 30 years enabling Patricia's behavior, making excuses for her looking the other way. He said Ronald was not blameless in this. Then Marcus asked both of them to leave. He said he did not want to see them again. Patricia started crying, real tears this time. I think, though, with her, it was always hard to tell. Ronald put his arm around her and guided her toward the door. Before they left, Patricia looked back at me one more time. There was something in her eyes that might have been regret or might have been anger that her plan had backfired so spectacularly, I will never know for sure. The weeks after I left the hospital were some of the hardest of my life. Our daughter, whom we named Sophie, had to stay in the NICU for 3 weeks before she was strong enough to come home. I drove to the hospital every day to sit beside her incubator, to hold her tiny hand through the holes in the plastic to sing to her, and tell her stories about the life we were going to have together. My body healed slowly. The cesarean incision left a scar across my lower abdomen, a permanent reminder of that day. But the physical wounds were nothing compared to the emotional ones. I had nightmares about that bathroom, about the locked door, about lying on that cold floor while the life drained out of me. I woke up screaming more than once, and Marcus was always there holding me, telling me I was safe. I went to therapy. My counselor helped me understand that what Patricia did was a form of abuse, that I was not wrong to feel betrayed and traumatized. She helped me work through the guilt. I felt the irrational voice in my head that kept asking if I could have done something differently. She reminded me that none of this was my fault. Marcus was my rock through all of it. He took a leave of absence from work to take care of Sophie and me. He cooked meals, changed diapers, held me when I cried. He never once complained, never once made me feel like I was a burden. He told me every day that he loved me, that he was proud of me, that we were going to get through this together. 6 months after Sophie was born, we moved to a new city. Marcus got a job offer in Portland, Oregon, and we decided to take it. We needed a fresh start, a place where we could build our life without the shadow of his family hanging over us. Our new home is a small house with a garden in the backyard. Sophie has her own room painted yellow with butterflies on the walls. She is a happy baby, always smiling, always reaching for the world with curious hands. When I look at her, I am amazed that something so beautiful came from something so terrible. Ronald has stayed in touch with Marcus. He respects our boundaries and never mentions Patricia or Diane. Once a month or so, he drives up to Portland to visit his granddaughter. He always brings gifts and stays for dinner. I think he is trying in his own way to make amends for the years he spent enabling his wife. I have not fully forgiven him, but I am working on it. I have not seen or spoken to Patricia or Diane since that day in the hospital. I heard through Ronald that Diane's marriage to Derek ended after less than a year. Apparently, he discovered that Diane had been lying to him about several things, including her involvement in what happened to me. I do not know the details, and I do not want to know. That chapter of my life is closed. The criminal case against Patricia was eventually dropped. The district attorney decided that the evidence was not strong enough to guarantee a conviction, and pursuing the case would have been expensive and time-consuming. I was disappointed but not surprised. The civil suit is still pending. Marcus's lawyer says we have a good chance of winning. But even if we do not, the process has already forced Patricia to confront what she did. Her reputation in her social circle has been damaged. People know what she is capable of now. But honestly, none of that matters to me anymore. What matters is the family I have built with Marcus and Sophie. What matters is the peace I have found after so much pain. What matters is knowing that I survived something that could have destroyed me and I came out the other side stronger. I learned something important from this experience. Not every family deserves your loyalty. Not every relationship is worth preserving. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you are the ones who hurt you the most. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. I also learned that you have to advocate for yourself. For years, I stayed quiet when Patricia made her cutting remarks. I smiled and nodded when she dismissed my feelings. I told myself that keeping the peace was more important than standing up for myself. I was wrong. If I had spoken up sooner, set boundaries earlier, maybe things would have been different. Or maybe not. But at least I would have been true to myself. Today, as I write this, Sophie is napping in her crib. The afternoon sun is coming through the window, casting golden light across the floor. Marcus is in the kitchen making dinner. I can hear him humming to himself something he does when he's happy. This is my life now. Quiet, simple, full of love. Sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you were born into. And sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. If this story resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to cut ties with a family member for your own well-being? How did you find the strength to do it? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is going through something similar. If you found value in this video, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And if you are not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss future stories. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. I wish you peace, healing, and the courage to protect your own happiness. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.